And then also, especially given the drought that we're experiencing, being water hogs. And what's happening with, what's your position about that, and how are you going to protect electric ratepayers? Thank you.
So that has so many different angles. Let me start by saying the easy thing, which is the people building the data centers are some of the richest companies and people in the world. They're the big AI companies, the artificial intelligence companies, and they're worth hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars. And it absolutely cannot happen that they come into a community and drive up the cost of electricity. It absolutely cannot happen. And it also cannot happen that they come into a community and suck up the water, particularly the groundwater, that the communities are relying on, particularly for agriculture. So that's easy. There's a bigger question here, both about electricity and about artificial intelligence. Look, our electricity companies, the three big electricity companies in this state, are legal monopolies. And they charge us twice as much as the average in the United States of America. And they'll explain to you that that's absolutely necessary, but that's what monopolies always do. They always explain to you, we need to overcharge you and we need to give you terrible service because we're a monopoly and you don't have a choice. And I'm saying, oh no, we're going to have a choice. I'm going to introduce competition and we're going to oversee them completely differently. So that's one thing. And people keep saying, I said, we'll drop electric rates by 25%. And everyone's like, that's impossible. And I feel like, if we drop them 25%, it's still 50% more than everybody else in the United States pays. Not what I consider a home run, to be honest. And particularly because we're an electricity revolution around the world. We have so many new technologies, many of them coming right out of California to drop electricity prices. And we're not taking advantage of them because it's not good for the utilities. But you guys know, just to give you some numbers, I shouldn't go into this much depth, but I'm crazy on this topic. To generate electricity on your roof through solar panels costs 1 to 2 cents a kilowatt hour. To store it in a battery costs 2 cents a kilowatt hour, and that'll go down in half, easily. We're getting charged 30, 40 cents a kilowatt hour. I mean, you're adding something up to 4 that we're paying 10 times more than that for all the overhead. So we can introduce competition in electricity, I promise you, and we need to do it, and we need to make it local, and we need to give people some control and make it distributed. That's number one.
Fuck yeah.
We're gonna do it. And the second thing is, we need to talk about artificial intelligence. And we have to talk about it because there's this sense of like, it might come and it might take away people's jobs. It's like, no, that's not true. It's taking away people's jobs right now. Yeah. I don't know if you saw, but I think yesterday, Meta, Facebook, said that they were going to spend $135 billion on AI investment, and that to pay for it, they were going to fire 20% of the people at their company. And the stock went up. So if you're wondering whether people are going to lose their jobs because of artificial intelligence, I think we can definitively say yes. I think I'm the only person running for governor who has an artificial intelligence policy. And let me say, that policy starts with protecting working people. If you think, when I think about the biggest failure in American political life since I've been around, the biggest failure was watching the people in the Middle West working in the auto industry and in manufacturing lose their jobs while politicians told them, we're going to take care of you, which they never did. Never happened. And you go look at those cities in the Midwest, Cleveland, Detroit, Akron, Gary, the mill towns, that can't happen in California. That's why we have an AI policy, because we want this to be a tool for working people, not a replacement of working people.
Hi, my name is Jenny Weissman, and I've been doing a lot of research on you. And I first want to say to both of you, thank you for who you are and all you do. And I recommend that everybody read your letter on the Giving Pledge, because that told me so much about you. I run a nonprofit here for 17 years, and my question is based on my experience. I've been trying to build affordable housing for seniors and pets for 7 years here. I haven't been able to get 100 rental houses built because of the red tape and the permits and the lack of funding and all the bureaucracy. And every year that you're a senior, another year that goes by.
A valuable year.
And the pets are suffering here. I've rescued 800 pets in the last 17 years and found them homes. And I've really had women call me and say they'll live in their car before they give up their pet because they can't afford it. So you're telling us you're gonna build 1 million houses in 4 years. Please tell me how you're gonna get the funding, cut through the red tape, and break the bias of modular housing, because I've been trying to do that and it's nothing but resistance. So you have my vote, and I really appreciate everything you're doing.
So, the line that I like to use about housing is, there's no silver bullet, it's silver buckshot. Because there's so many darn issues slowing our housing in this state. It does start with permitting. And there was a move, which I strongly supported last year, to modify CEQA to make it less onerous and give us a chance to build some things. But we continue to have immensely long permitting times, immensely expensive permitting times, and then fees from cities and counties that can be up to 20% of the cost of the house. It's kind of incredible. So that's number one. And that is, a lot of this is about being a manager and an executive. And it really is about understanding this is urgent, and therefore when there's a problem, you need to get there and solve it. We can't let it fester, because people can't afford to live here and people are suffering. And they're living in their cars, and they're living on the street. First is permitting, second is zoning. We need to zone things much more densely and around public transportation. There's a whole bunch of reasons for that, but it's true, that's 2. 3 is, we really do need lower cost per square foot of building. We are way too expensive in this state, and the actual answer is to manufacture off-site, to manufacture houses the way we manufacture cars. Way cheaper. About 1/3 lower cost per square foot right now, and that's, I think, that, you know, all economies of scale says that will increase, the discount will increase. We have to do that. The other thing that's really true about housing in the state of California is this. Cities and counties don't want housing, and they haven't wanted it since Prop 13. And the reason they don't want it is they view housing as an unfunded mandate to them to provide education and health care for the people in those houses, and they don't have the money for it. So they drag their feet and they try and avoid it. And it's a huge issue. That's when we talk about split roll, closing the corporate real estate tax loophole, that money, you think about how real estate taxes work. They go to the cities and counties, which means they will have the money. It's no longer an unfunded mandate, it's a funded mandate. And then, they no longer, we're gonna have a little push and pull about, okay, you have the money, now we need the permits. You can't drag your feet, blah, 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 because this is really killing people. And I will say this, it's really killing young people. The average age in California for a first-time home buyer has gone from 28 in 1980 to 42. And you think about a house, when Kat and I bought our first house, we bought a house in the Haight in San Francisco, $319,000. And I called my mother and I said, it's the most expensive house that's ever been sold in the world. There's no way a house is worth this much. We should keep renting. And she said, Tom, Sonny, don't be an idiot. You're building a life, your wife is pregnant. A house is a place to build a life. It's not just an investment or an asset. It's part of your life, and it's a different way of thinking about your life. Which I'm trying to say, that's true for us, but it's true for everybody. We need to get people to believe that they can buy a house again, and we need to drive down the price, And we need to provide the fund. You know, you're saying housing finance. Yes, the state can do that. You know, we've done that at our bank. I think 17,000 units we've financed of low-income housing. We can do the finance part. We need to get the permitting part, the cost per square foot, and there's a lot of, right, you know, I'll give you one last example of this. So I was talking to low-income housing developer 3 weeks ago in LA, and he told me he zoned it, he permitted it, he built it, and he couldn't get it hooked up to the electric grid for 4 months. Of course, his interest is clicking away, the costs are clicking away. 4 months to get hooked up to the electric grid? I promise you as governor, I will make a call. And if I need to go to LA, that just cannot happen. You know, that is the system, the process eating us. And a lot of this is about being a governor is, if you're doing your job, it is an unglamorous job. It is executing things and making the laws work. We think passing the law is the win. Passing the law isn't the win. Making the law work is the win. Getting the results is the win. And that is how I've led my whole life. And that's how I will judge our success, is are we in fact building houses, driving down costs, and giving people a chance to make rent and buy a house.
Hi, my name is Patrick Crowley. I'm 72, retired, live in Desert Hot Springs in a manufactured home community. What we're concerned, we're lucky that our park was sold. Blackstone owned it. Blackstone has killed the market throughout the country, especially here in the US, of what they've done, especially San Diego, of what they've done. We're okay, but there's a lot of people in this state that Blackstone owns their mobile home parks, or their homes, or their apartment building, the data centers you mentioned, they own all that, and they are the world's largest real estate holding company. What can we do? What can you do?
Is owned.
So let's talk about it. So first of all, before we say anything else, I want to say to Patrick, great green shirt. It's St. Patrick's Day, your name is Patrick, come on. But I do want to talk about this issue, because private equity is basically turning everything into a bank. They don't own manufactured housing so they can provide housing. They own manufactured housing so they can make money and squeeze money out of housing. And that's what we're seeing around this state, and we're seeing it broadly in our society. And I want to give you the example of how I think this doesn't work, which is Boeing. You know, Boeing was a great airplane company, and they were run by these engineers in Seattle, and they built great airplanes for a really long time. And somebody got in, wasn't Blackstone, but it was somebody with a sharp pencil who said, we're not making enough money with this airplane business, and they moved them out of Seattle, and they got in there and turned it into a bank to make more money, and they did make more money. They had one problem: the planes don't fly, which is kind of a bummer. But that's my point. We can't allow the financialization of, that's why I'm for single payer. It's like, we can't have people scheming how to rip us off in terms of healthcare instead of scheming how to provide healthcare. You know, I'm someone from business, but I'm not sitting here saying, let's run the government like a business. Business is taking advantage of us pretty broadly. And I think that we've got to understand that we should push back on that. And look, we got it. Look, we're in a gigantic, big fight between working people and very big rich companies and very rich people who think they're getting screwed and want to control our democracy to make sure it doesn't happen. That is what 2026 is about. That fight.
Fuck yeah.
And if we lose this fight, look, they're going to do huge independent expenditures going after labor. And after me, I'm afraid. But my point is, if we lose this fight, we're not going to lose this fight. This is a crucible year for which way California goes. Crucible year, you guys. And to miss this point and to miss the point about, in the back of the room, about how deep this goes and how central it is toward affordability and justice for working people is really not to pay attention to what's going on right here. Lay it on me.
Thank you for coming out. My name is John. The question I have is going to relate to what you're going to do about climate change and militarism. So we know that